We're on. Kevin, you're up.
Thanks, Christy. My name is Kevin Freeman, and the issues facing us today are not bound by political ideology, but rather by the moral compass of compassion and empathy. We are a strong community built on a foundation of shared values. Home, the arts, financial security, our natural resources, and education are all concepts that transcend party affiliation. In the Hudson Valley, I have been involved in local politics since joining the Saugerties Democratic Committee 5 years ago, petitioning, phone banking, and canvassing for many campaigns. I take their endorsement as a confirmation of my work ethic. I have served as an election inspector, a census enumerator, and presently am secretary of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I have taken on activist and organizer roles for Citizen Action, Seed the Vote, New Yorkers Against Gun Violence, where I personally registered hundreds of voters. I have stood in the rain and snow with signs, marched for women's rights, healthcare, the environment, Black Lives Matters, and organized labor. I feel strongly that democracy requires more than an armchair participation. I come from a computer background. I have held positions of director of IT and system administrator, both required forward thinking. I have been a laborer, worked in retail, and a small business owner. I have lived in rental apartments and owned my own homes. I understand financial and emotional insecurity, having lost everything in a house fire a decade ago. And recently, when living with a month-to-month lease, my landlord raised my rent more than 30% during the pandemic. But running for office isn't about me. I believe Saugerties has a higher calling, which we can lead by example through fair and smart zoning, awareness of implicit bias, and both economic and housing opportunity. Citizens need to be engaged and feel like they're part of the process. To that end, I'm exploring participatory budgeting, ranked choice voting, and other programs as a way of encouraging conversations about our future. Communities and individuals cannot achieve fulfillment until the basic needs of food, shelter, and security are satisfied. We live in conjunction with other supportive groups and municipalities. We have shown how strong our voice can be, resisting the abuse of our beloved Esopus and defeating the Ashokan hydroelectric project. We can all benefit when we cooperate through the Communal Power Program and support green initiatives. I am encouraged by the progress in turning Ulster County blue, but I want Saugerties to lead, not follow. Government should be an unseen hand, the law impartial. While the town board represents all constituents, it must also stand up for the less powerful. I believe we have the tools to improve our country with progressive concepts such as universal basic income and universal health care, but those are not topics for the town board. Here in Saugerties, the artist, professional, educator, caregiver, laborer, retiree, parent, child, and more make up our tapestry and all deserve a place at the table. I thank you for your time and consideration. Look forward to discussing policy with you all.
Thank you, Kevin. Next up is Deirdre Miller. Deirdre?
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Deirdre Miller, and you might ask why I'm running for a seat on the Saugerties Town Board. Well, I would like to tell you that I am a longtime Ulster County resident. I was born and raised in Kingston. My family has been in this area for hundreds of years. My dad was the first Black deputy sheriff full-time on the Ulster County Sheriff's Department. I am a single mother. Divorced single mother. I raised two sons alone. I worked hard, working multiple jobs to provide for my children. I was able to purchase my own home on my own. I worked very hard, and hard times came. So I know what hard time is like. I got injured on my job and was rendered disabled. And so I have been not sitting, passive and sitting by, just doing nothing. I decided that was the opportunity to go back to school and re-educate myself. And I earned a bachelor's and then pending 2 master's degrees, final paperwork to be done from universities in Europe, from Poland. I lived over there in a program. I lived in multiple countries in Eastern Europe, the Czech Republic, Poland, Slovakia, and Hungary. I learned a lot about society, culture, and the political culture over of those countries from their perspective, and dealing with the Western large countries like Germany and Belgium and England, and how these countries were able to fight their way to have their own spot and become very economically sound through collective organizations like the Visegrad program, our group, shall I say. I've been fighting my whole life to make my way, to be able to, provide for my children and to be able to, get them through school. My oldest son had a seizure disorder, which is why we moved to Saugerties. And I had to fight to get him into school because Kingston wouldn't allow him in because of medical issues. And so Saugerties was good. He got a good education here, and I'm proud to live in Saugerties. And I'm here to fight like I have for everything that I own and that I have accomplished through my life. And I want to bring that to the Saugerties residents.
Thank you, Deidre. Next up is Lauren Ruberg. Lauren?
Hello, everybody. My name is Lauren Marcella Ruberg. I'm 44 years old. I have a master's degree. I'm a social studies teacher by trade. Own my own home. I'm a wife, mother, sister, daughter, friend, neighbor, child safety seat tech. In short, I wear a lot of hats. I'm not a politician. I am a resident who cares very much about Saugerties. What do I have to offer Saugerties? Perspective, pure and simple. I grew up a little barefoot mountain kid in West Saugerties who is very much afraid to ever leave home. However, left the security of my home and went into the world, only to return where? Back to Saugerties. Kevin, I too lost my home in a fire here in '97, and we lost everything. And if it wasn't for the residents and neighbors of Saugerties, we would never have overcome that. They carried us through that awful time. Why I'm the best candidate for Saugerties? I'm a tenured social studies teacher turned mom of 2 daughters, ages 10 and 8. I'm a citizen of Saugerties, taxpayer. This isn't about political affiliation for me, although I am a Democrat. On the local level, I'm a Saugertesian, period. I'm for my people of Saugerties, regardless. Over my career, I managed thousands of students and their families, and doing so, it taught me a lot about the workings of a community. I've also been the board president of a homeowners association, which in a sense is a microcosm of a municipality. As the president, I needed to understand the state laws, the association's bylaws, rules, regulations, and other governing codes, such as building codes, fire codes, health department codes, etc. I really was responsible for the operation of $1 million of unit owners' assets. We set policies, I set policies in which our community members lived by, determined how to spend money while recognizing how expenditures affected property values, planned ahead for repairs and maintenance so that we didn't have costly assessments, placing homeowners in a financial pickle later on, reviewed budget expenditures, financial statements, prepared short-term projects lists, as well as long-term capital reserve budgets. I worked closely with our lawyer on retainer and negotiated contracts with vendors, the groundskeepers, snow removal, electricians, plumbing, etc. We had a pool, so that was another liability where we had to look into insurance. For Saugerties, having connections to senior citizens facing housing troubles due to rising costs, lack of inventory they want to downsize, employees who work in local government positions, children in the Saugerties School District, friends and neighbors who own local businesses, and there's my timer. I guess I'm out of time. Am I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank
Sure.
you. Next up is Nina Schmidbauer. Nina, are you here?
Yes, thanks, Christine.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nina Schmidbauer, as I was so introduced, and I've grown up in Saugerties and obtained a master's in social work from SUNY Binghamton. I've spent the last 7 years in mental health advocacy as a psychotherapist. Most recently, I started a social justice committee at the Hudson Valley Guild of Mental Health Professionals where we're using our voices for advocacy and the creation of mutual aid to respond to community crises. Due to a lack of mental health services at some of our local schools in Saugerties, I started an outpatient mental health clinic here. I have experience testifying in Ulster County Family Court, speaking at conferences about the creation of community schools, and consulting with professionals on anti-racist practices. Anti-racist work is part of what adds to my skill set and actively supports the kind of candidates I hope to see. I run an anti-racist book club, created a reoccurring Decolonizing Our Practices group for white identifying therapists, and led the social justice art project in the village. I'm running for town board because it's critical in a national pandemic to have economic security and mental health on the forefront of our minds. All issues, housing, taxes, transportation, beautification, environmental conservation, job security, impact the well-being of Saugerties residents. Having backpacked across the world, I expected to witness poverty and trauma worse than in America. I was in for a rude awakening. As a social worker, I've been witness to horrific trauma and injustice. I've seen more restraints of children used in public school than in detention centers. I know who lives in Saugerties. Children in our community who eat only out of vending machines, homeless children who are housed next to sex offenders in motels, trans children who are denied medical treatment, and adults recovering from spiritual and sexual abuse. This is the Saugerties that most don't see. Having worked with parents who abuse and neglect their children gives me the skill set of working with folks who hold different life experiences. I've had to make difficult choices because it's my ethical responsibility. What drew me to the work is being an advocate for those whose voice has not been valued and empowering those who feel powerless. I want every student to feel safe and nourished at school, every child to have access to a trusted adult, every adult to have the freedom to openly express who they love, every individual to be treated equally when committing a traffic violation, and every resident of Saugerties to feel confident using their voice. There's power in numbers. This is the vision that my Citizens for Saugerties team and our over 50 volunteers share. Won't you join us in this vision?
Thank you, Nina. I have a couple of things to say before we go to the next one. First of all, if you're not speaking, please have your mic muted so that we don't get the ambient noise. And the other thing is Nina, which this is a kind of an example of what Saugerties is looking at. Because of broadband issues, Nina has to be speaking on one and visible on another. So if you have a full screen, you will see Nina and her voice when she's talking. If you have it as voice only, speaker only, you'll only hear her, you will not see her. So I just want to let you know that. Okay, with that, next we have Timothy Scott. Tim, could you give your 3 minutes overview?
Hi, my name's Timothy Scott. I'm a lifelong Saugerties resident. I'm running on a platform of addressing property taxes, job creation, affordable housing, environmental protection, and of course, diversity, which up until now, I would say right now is the most diversity I've ever seen in my lifetime here in this town. Growing up, I really did not experience any. My background serving the town has been on the Zoning Board of Appeals for the past 3 years. I tackled the Joe Carolus toxic dumping issue, which is still going on, unfortunately, in Woodstock. I've also been serving as an elected trustee on our beautiful library's Board of Trustees for the past 3 years. I was elected in September of 2018. I also serve as recording secretary of the Ulster County Young Democrats, again, for the past 3 years, organizing with Young Democrats throughout the county and endorsing candidates for office. I also have experience as a campaign treasurer, serving up until my decision to run for town board. I served as treasurer for John Schoonmaker, who of course is a county legislative candidate and a current member of the town board. So within these roles, I bring budgeting skills, crucial budgeting skills, as one of the few bringing town-wide budgeting experience to this particular election. So in that capacity, we've addressed the property tax.
1 minute.
Of course, over the past couple of years, I've worked on 2 different budgets. Another budget season will be coming up over the next month. We've been watching that very closely, especially with the state mandate of $15 an hour, which hasn't come down quite yet, but we anticipate that it will soon. And as such, our finance chair is going to be working that into our budget. So
30 seconds.
that's what I'm bringing to the table. And I, again, hope to have a fruitful conversation with the rest of the candidates here tonight.
Thank you, Tim. Next up, our last candidate is Kaylee Zalago. I invariably mess up Kaylee's name. I apologize. Kaylee Zalago. You're on, Kaylee.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kaylee Zaloga. You can also call me Kay. I'm running for town board because I love Saugerties and I want to support our community for the long term. Saugerties is where my husband and I became homeowners. It's where he runs a small business and where our future lies. I'm committed to improving the quality of life for all families, which means protecting our environment, ensuring that people can afford housing and meet their basic needs, drawing in businesses that will provide good jobs, and including everyone's voice in town decisions. I've seen life from a lot of different perspectives so far. I have been employed and I've been laid off. I've rented from absentee landlords and I now own a home. I've worked in offices and zoos. I've scraped by on minimum wage, worried about how I'll afford groceries tomorrow, and known the comfort of a livable salary. I've been respected and I've been brushed aside because of my gender, my age, my hair color, my lipstick, what have you. I tell you this because perspective matters. More than political ideology, more than where we were born, more than what we do for a living. It's our experiences and the empathy that comes with them that matters most in community government. Government and this election aren't about any one of us. It's about all of us and finding the people we trust to really listen to every community member and make decisions with the whole, not just individuals in mind. Good leaders listen actively and compassionately, and I will commit to working together no matter what the issue is. My day job, and sometimes my middle of the night job, is working for State Assembly member Richard Gottfried, who chairs the Assembly Health Committee and sponsors the New York Health Act. We fight every day to improve our healthcare system, to reduce the inequities and racial disparities in it, and generally to protect vulnerable people and our environment throughout the state. We do this through legislation, through negotiating the state health budget, and bringing stakeholders together to solve problems. Some of the specific areas I work on are improving access to mental health and substance use services, maternity and reproductive care, and services for children and adults with disabilities. This year, we also passed legislation to help tenants access small claims court and help victims of trafficking clear their records. The skills I use in my job every day apply at every level of government, whether I'm talking with the State Commissioner of Health, the County Planning Board, my neighbors. My strengths lie in deeply listening to people, in analyzing proposals in fine print, negotiating with people on opposite sides of an issue, and coming up with solutions and plans to implement them. Some of my goals as a town board member, if I have the privilege of being elected, will be working with our neighboring towns, the county, and our state and federal representatives to protect the Esopus and our natural resources, taking a holistic view of housing to work strategically with short-term rental regulations, zoning, and other development avenues to address long-term housing needs, resurrecting our economic development committee, and ensuring the implementation of our police reform and reinvention committee's recommendations and continuing that conversation with our communities of color. With that, I thank you for your time and consideration, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Kaylee. So now we'll begin the question and answer part of this. The candidates, we've asked them to keep their answer under 1 minute. So they need to be concise and to the point because we have questions and we have 6 candidates. So we want to make sure everyone gets to speak. So the first one up will be Deidre Miller, because keeping in that order that, you know, first it was Kevin and now Deidre will start. So the first question to all of you, but we'll begin with Deidre's answer, are what are the two main reasons you're running for town board? The two main reasons you're running for town board. Deidre? Is Deidre there? I see that it's the. there you
No,
are.
I'm having problems. The power thing just came up on my phone.
Okay,
Okay.
did you hear
Okay.
that? Did you hear the question, or do I need to repeat it?
Could you repeat it, please?
Yes, what are the
so that's
two
fine.
main, what are the two main reasons you're running for the town board? The two main reasons.
Okay, well, because, I was taught that, or I believe that I was taught, and I also believe that, if you're gonna sit around and complain about what's wrong and how to fix it, then your best bet is to just get involved. You don't get anything done by just complaining. You need to come up with,
Seconds.
different approaches to how things get taken care of. I personally just want to, increase the economic standing of the people in this community. I want a better community for everyone. And I just believe that, given the things that I've learned by living abroad, that I have some pretty good ideas on how to bring some of that economic prosperity to Saugerties.
1 minute.
Thank you. Next up is Lauren. Again, same question. Two main reasons you're running for the town board.
I guess first is having grown up here and then left, coming home. I fortunately was able to, because my husband's company is out of Versailles, Ohio. However, many of my peers or other people, generational families, children, grandchildren, you name it, are either being pushed out or can't afford to live here. And we don't need another Hamptons or Cape Cod town. We don't need to hollow out our community. We need to find a balance between two. And I chose to raise my children here because it was the community that raised me, and I wanted to help raise my children. The second thing is I have been regularly on town board, school district meetings for the last several years, and specifically the town board and the Saugerties Democratic Committee. I've raised many of these issues over the last few years and not had any response. So I'm in it to get in it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Nina, you're next.
Thank you. My two main issues here are around trust in our government and around property taxes. So there's sometimes an impression that there are some backroom deals going on. And so I think it's crucial for residents to feel confident speaking their minds without any fear of financial retribution. And I want to ensure that those who own homes can stay in their homes. Hardworking citizens who've bought a home should not be at risk of losing it. Those are my main issues.
30 seconds.
No, she's got it under. Thank you. Timothy, you're next.
My two main issues would be basically affordable housing. That's of course an issue not just in Saugerties, nationwide. So hopefully they'll be addressed at all levels, but obviously we're talking local here, and that's where you start. Any given day of the week, when I look on any real estate website, you see these houses, you see these apartments going for
30 seconds.
ridiculous prices, and it's unsustainable. So hand in hand with that, property taxes, because that's unsustainable as well.
Great. Thank you, Tim. Kaylee?
Sure. Protecting, yep, the two most important things to me are protecting our environment and shaping a sustainable economy, because those two things impact every area of everyone's life who lives in Saugerties. Sustainable economy looks like living wage jobs for people who live here, so that we can afford to stay here, so that our kids can come back here after they choose to go to college or do anything else. And it seems, in all of the town meetings I've been on lately, everyone seems fairly united in
Okay.
protecting the Esopus, our natural resources, and also the historical heritage in a lot of parts of our town. So those are the two guiding principles that I'd like to take into action.
Great, thank you. Okay, the next question that's come in is how do you
You
propose?
missed me.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry, Kevin. That's right, because I'm alphabetical order.
That's right.
Kevin, I'm sorry, I apologize. Go.
No
Kevin.
worries. Yeah. I think the question was, what could you repeat it? It was what
Yes,
we.
sure. What are the two main reasons you're running for town board?
Right. And I think that comes down to, I was one of those kind of armchair politicians who lived in a kind of echo bubble or what have you, and didn't really, this is an opportunity to actually take, my values into the market and see that people respond to them. I think it's important to have a progressive voice in government. And I think that I would bring that. And I think that I have something to offer. And so instead of being on the sidelines, I want to be part of the process. And that's what got me into this.
Thank you. And I apologize for that. So we're going to begin the next round of questions with Lauren. And so this will be Lauren. Are you ready, Lauren? Here it is. How do you propose positioning Saugerties for sustainable growth and protecting our environment? Lauren?
Okay, where am I? Here we are. I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sure. How do you propose positioning Saugerties for sustainable growth and protecting our environment?
I think, first of all, I'd just like to point out that the Saugerties Democratic Committee has already chosen their candidates. They've already endorsed them. So I don't want to give away all my secrets because after all, this is a competition. And I think that, so if you would like very specific information, I would love to hear from you and I would love to chat with you. However, I think that we need responsible zoning and I think we need to be careful. I've been on the planning board meetings and we have a lot of LLCs and other builders coming in and constantly wanting to develop things. For example, we have a gentleman who keeps wanting to add 3 or more story buildings to the town of Saugerties, but our fire departments do not have the means to fight those. However, the builder keeps saying, well, New York State says it's okay. So I think we need to be smart about our zoning and how much we develop and where we develop.
Okay, thank you. Nina, you're up next. Do you need the question repeated?
No, thank you.
Okay, great. You're on.
I'd like to see support for our gateway regulations and supporting the beautification of our town. In terms of the latter half of the question, I want to address the ongoing invasive species in the Esopus Creek by continuing our efforts and looking into grants for a new harvester and asking the DEP to offer a filtration system and insist on that.
Thank you. Timothy Scott, you're up next, Tim.
Part of economic development would be what the town is already exploring over on Old Kings Highway. What they need to do is change the zoning law so that it becomes a commercial area. That way it will be easier for businesses to go there. Right now we're dealing with a case of Verizon wanting to put a tower over there. That's before the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's an ongoing public hearing. I'm sure they'll be before us next month. So that's a big thing. And I would also agree with Ms. Midbauer that we do need to get another harvester because what we have right now is secondhand and it's not good enough.
Thank you, Tim. Kevin? Oh, I skipped, sorry. Kaylee?
That is okay. Any order is
I have to
fine.
say, I'm much better in person than on Zoom. Kaylee, go ahead.
Sure. So one of the most important things I think we can do to protect our environment right now is join with the other communities who have been fighting the Ashokan releases. This is something that affects more than just Saugerties, but especially Saugerties. Anyone who's seen the Esopus lately knows. So that's going to be partnerships with our surrounding communities. As Tim said, one of the other issues we need to address specifically for the economy is rezoning, but carefully, so that we're inviting in the businesses who will support year-round residents with year-round jobs for us, and also the goods and services that we want. You know, we have a little bit of this tension here because Saugerties is a growing tourist destination, and we all know why. We live here because we love the community and because it's beautiful. But before that, it's home to 20,000 of us. So we need to be very careful about how we're allowing both real estate and economic development so that it's really supporting a long-term vision for all of us who live here.
Thank you, Kaylee. Kevin, you're up.
Yeah, thanks. I think that part of it has been touched on already, but the comprehensive plan, has been changing faster like every year, and it deals with these issues. It deals with the zoning and the ability to attract businesses to the area, but to do it, and as it ties to environmental, to do it with supporting, maintaining open spaces and the character of the town, and not to lead to overdevelopment. So. I think that the zoning is key to it, and it needs to be examined. Thank you, Skip. And that's it for me.
That's 30 seconds. You got
Great.
it.
I got it.
Great.
I'm good.
He's good. Thank you. Deidre, you're next. Deidre, are you still with us?
Sorry, I turned the mic. I keep turning the mic off. Could you
Okay.
please repeat the question, because I forgot what it was.
Sure. How do you propose positioning Saugerties for sustainable growth and protecting the environment?
Well, it's my belief that in this particular time in history here, that the opportunity for using the environment and sustaining it and cleaning it up and making it sustainable for a generation to come is the key to economic development. I believe that we need to use the issues with economy and green energy and other alternative energies as the building block for economic prosperity for the citizens of Saugerties. And I think that is the way to go. And that's what I want to see happen. And as far as zoning goes, I believe that we have to be a little bit of protectionist when it comes to the environment and what we allow in here. But we also have to be realistic about having to let companies and that come in here that are willing.
Okay, thank you. So we're on to the next question, and Nina will be up first. And that question is, are you satisfied with the Saugerties police response to the recommendation of the Police Reform Commission? And if not, what should be done? Nina?
Thanks so much, Christine, and thanks for your hard work on that committee. So I certainly want to honor the work that's been done on the Police Reform Committee and those recommendations, and possibly add a bit to that. So I'd like to see having a social worker on staff to intervene with domestic violence, phone calls, anything that involves child protective services or any mental health related matters, as well as having yearly racial bias and mental health training for police officers, as well as providing police officers with incentives to receive mental health treatment ongoing for the vicarious trauma that they experience on the job without any retribution to their employment, and also allowing families of officers to access treatment without jeopardizing officers' positions. I'd also like to see us replace the student resource officer at the high school with a full-time security guard. I know I couldn't do that as a town board member, but I'd support the school board in doing so. And additionally, I'd like to create policies for use of military-grade weapons, which we currently do not have.
Thank you. Thank you. Tim, you're next.
Well, I absolutely believe that, the town board adopting the commission's recommendations, obviously that's an incredibly important thing, but adoption and implementation are two very different things. So it needs to be implemented in its entirety. I believe that we do need to be sensitive to both sides of this issue here. I personally know law enforcement within the community, some active, some retired. And it is an important issue that I personally will pledge to work with anyone to make sure that it's implemented, because we do need to see reforms so that police know if they're interacting with someone who may not understand what they're asking of them, that they don't do something rash and hurt someone on either side.
Thank you, Tim. Kaylee?
Sure. Like, I'm proud of the work of the committee that made these recommendations, and I think, the proof will be in the pudding. We need to see how well they're implemented. I was not impressed with the response to one of the recommendations about requiring racial data to be collected on police stops and other things like that. A member of the police force said that we are not racist and that's why we don't collect such data, but it's so important to measure everything related to discrimination and to bias, because what we don't measure, we can't address. So I'd like to make sure that data collection is actually implemented in a way that gives us workable data so we can make more solutions that are specifically targeted in the future. And I also agree with Nina that we need to see mental health professionals on staff, and I would like to see the implicit bias training and also training in how to appropriately respond to someone experiencing a mental health condition or crisis.
Thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I too appreciate the work that the commission did and their findings in their report. And I would like to see it put into action. Furthermore, I would support an initiative at the county level, even to, in addition, not to have the police respond to every call. There are certain calls where they might not be appropriate for. And, certainly there are ones that they are, but, we should explore what other resources that we have other than just sending somebody with a gun to every situation. And additionally, I appreciate that the bias training is part of it. I encourage everybody to go to the Implicit Project run by Harvard online. It's all anonymous, and you might surprise yourself with your findings, because it's part of our culture in the police and in the general public.
Thank you. Deidre?
Hi, yes, well, I agree that the finished product I agree with, and I think it's a good solution. It's a good start anyway. But I really would like to see some reform when it comes to lethal force in this country, and well, specifically here in this area. I lived in 4 different countries where lethal force was not the first go-to, and people lived well. People did not fear the police. People didn't get shot and killed. They didn't have to, rough that many people up. I've seen it all. And I'm telling you that I believe that this country has gone overboard with the lethal force in policing, and that needs to be remedied. And so that's what I would like to address. And I just believe that there are some other things that need to be addressed that could be, tightened up and, a little bit as far as the racial biasing. And I would just like to see that happen.
Thank you, Deidre. Lauren, you are wrapping this up here. Are you with us?
Hello.
Yes.
Again, thank you for your duties on the police reform. I was also on those meetings. I think that first and foremost, I was very surprised to find that we had no police commission. So our police chief has really not to answer to anybody. He's to carry out the law, not make the law. He's to work for the people of Saugerties. And I think that that's a very good point made in the recommendations. I think we need to set policy for political appointees I think we definitely, as Nina said, we need to bring in more mental health to step in. We have an increasing rate of depression. There's so much going on economically, and it's just getting worse, yet we don't hear about it in the news. We had a young man in Saugerties commit suicide just a few weeks ago, and nobody knows about it. We need some stuff to happen here. And then we need training to be more or less military.
Okay, great, thank you. Listen, at this particular point, we have more questions here, but I'm assuming that there are questions that have been generated from the audience based on people's response. So Bob, maybe you could do 1 or 2 questions from the chat, and then if we have time, I'll go back. Bob, could you pull up a question for us? Or while he's pulling up a question, maybe just to continue on. So Bob, you're going to be up next, and I'm going to do another question from here, okay? So the question here is, what is your plan to reduce taxes in Saugerties? Or do you have a plan to reduce taxes in Saugerties? And are you up to the task of challenging budgets that are presented to you for approval if in a way that would help reduce taxes? So the first person would be up is Tim. Tim?
So again, for the past few years, I've served as an elected trustee on the library board of trustees, and I've worked with this already. We do have to stay within the property tax cap. It's a little bit different with the library, because if we were to go over that that particular cap, we as a board would simply vote to raise it ourselves. It would just be 60%, not of the population, just of the board.
30
So
seconds.
what we've done is line by line scrutinization of making sure that we're not overspending on something, cutting where we see resources that are not necessary, while providing the highest quality of services for our
Some
people.
mac and cheese or something.
And for the
Sorry,
past
I'm on
2 years,
this.
we've been able to do that and
You want
provide
me to-
a 0% tax increase. And I'm sure we'll do it again this year as
1
well.
minute.
Thank you. Kaylee?
Sure. I think the most important thing we can do to address
The thing here gets very hot.
I'm sorry, can everyone mute? It's a little bit distracting. Is to attract businesses that will fill in some of the vacant properties that are currently not contributing at all to the tax roll. I think there's also work we can do to rehabilitate vacant properties or speed up the process through which those become habitable, either by residents or businesses, which would also help address the lack of housing stock we have. And by increasing the tax base, we can lower the tax burden on individuals without having to cut services or pretend that cost of living doesn't actually increase with all of our expenses. And as to working on budgets, I work on the state healthcare budget, and I'm very comfortable scrutinizing every word on hundreds of pages of budget documents and figuring out where money is meant to go, where it needs to go, and any kinds of mischief that could happen in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin?
Thank you. Well, the issue of tax is obviously complex, and I would support the cap. And I'm also interested in business development to get, commercial enterprises into vacant spaces to help fill in any space, any lack we have in funding. It's also important to recognize what we get for our taxes, and we want to get the most out of that. And to that end, I'm also familiar with budgets, both as a director of IT. I served on a co-op board, so of a large complex, and I'm familiar with making hard decisions like that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Deidre?
Myself, okay, all right. Well, I would definitely like to see lower taxes for residents, but I think that starts first with spending, and we have to find. I know that after living in Kingston for so many years, I saw a lot of waste by the city, and taking a long time with road projects, longer than it had to be. Different wasteful practices that need to be cleaned up in municipal government. And so I would start there first with waste. And as far as, development in that, I believe that we could start, giving putting a cap on single family housing development and start giving tax, some tax breaks for anyone who's interested in building multifamily dwellings.
Thank you. Lauren?
Hello. Could you just repeat the question again?
Sure. What is your plan to reduce taxes in Saugerties? And the second part of this is, are you up to the challenge? Are you up to being able to challenge budgets presented for approval to help reduce the tax burden on residents?
Okay, so first I'll answer the second question. I am absolutely up for the challenge. I don't claim to know everything. I am a information getter. If there's something I don't know, I find the answer to it. I'm also for the people of Saugerties, and everybody I've spoken to, their biggest issue is taxes. And if we keep putting so much emphasis on tourism and neglecting the hardworking people of Saugerties, we're going to hollow out our town. And we need to find a way to balance the visitors and the full-time residents here. I think regulating the short-term rentals will be a good way to start. I think we waste a lot of money on rescuing people that are unfamiliar with our territory, our areas. So perhaps working to try to help educate some of the visitors to our area to hike safely and that kind of stuff. And I think we need to focus on building our businesses and our tax revenue that way.
Great, thank you. And Nina?
Thank you. I will certainly be confident in scrutinizing the budget and looking at ways to generate revenue for the town outside of property taxes. So just some ideas are around our ice rink, Cantine Field, and ASO soccer fields, and the out-of-town residents paying higher fees for those, continuing to attract the film industry, which has been big in the Hudson Valley, and supporting our arts community, which always brings money. And so looking at a performance arts venue for our artists, and continuing to open industrial zones to bring commercial businesses that are paying taxes fully and offering safe, high-paying jobs.
Great, thank you. Bob, are you ready to get a question or two from the chat?
There are a number of questions. Some of them have already been addressed in the questions that were sent to you, and some of them have been addressed in part by some of the candidates. So let me start with this one. I would like to know thoughts to help founding families keep their beloved homes. My family's been in Saugerties for 5 generations. Will the older population be protected and able to keep their homes and be safe during all this growth of the town? Would there be creative solution making?
Okay, Kaylee, you're up first on this one.
Sure. I think this is going to be a tricky question that I don't have one answer to right now. Property taxes are part of that equation, but we also have to address how quickly and how unstably housing prices are rising, in part due to short-term rentals and increasing interest that's making people want to see Saugerties as a place to invest rather than a place to live. And I know that's hurting some of our people who've lived here a long time. So we'll need to look at ways that we can support those who are having trouble staying in their homes. And that could be things like revolving loans, helping people access some of the economic stabilization funds that are available, and especially for our older people. I believe there are programs that we could probably help them access to make sure that we keep people in their homes into the future. But it's complex, and I'm going to have to talk to people who know a lot more about this than I do.
Thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, this is a big issue, and it's not only the older population, but it's younger families. It's working people. It's, right now we're in a position where, and the numbers are out, almost half of the population in Saugerties lives under the Alice threshold, and Alice is, let me see if I can get that right, assets limited, income constrained, employed. So that's, not only people below the federal poverty level, but people that are, in danger of, losing their home with just one catastrophe. And so it's something that needs to be examined on a larger basis and part of the community, keeping older residents and people that have been living here for generations. We don't want them to leave. We want to attract people. We want this to be a welcoming community. And we want to build it out smartly, but we need to find a way of lessening the economic hardships on people.
Thank you. Deidre?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Well, Bob, could you give it a brief summary of the question, because it was a long question?
That's why I need it repeated.
Briefly,
A summary.
says, my family's been in Saugerties for 5 generations. Will the older population be protected and able to keep their homes and be safe during all this growth of the town?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, yeah, I believe that with smart economic planning and development in this area, that could level out help to level out the tax burdens of people's properties in this area, that we definitely could secure having, people who have been, older people specifically, having been here for a long time, be able to stay in their homes. There is no reason why anyone who has, spent a life in their home should have to give it up just because they can't afford the taxes. So I would definitely be on, on planning and on putting together some programs that would make sure that that seniors and low income people that have faced some economic trials are protected.
Thank you. Lauren?
Yes, I think that there's a couple of things. I don't know every way around this. Like Kaylee, I need to do some more research. However, organizations like RUPCO are rebuilding old used buildings and building them in energy efficiently and affordable for people. And I think that's a way to go. I think we need to, again, regulate short-term rentals, because when we have a balance where there's more of them and less people living here, we lose a workforce, we lose a lot. And I think we need to stop giving tax abatements to these big corporations. In '93, when HITS came here, we gave them an abatement, but since then we've built up a lot and we're still giving them, and I think that needs to stop.
Thank you. Thank you. Nina?
Thank you. Saugerties prides itself on intergenerational families being here. It's one of the things that makes Saugerties unique in the Hudson Valley, and older residents are absolutely vital to this community. STAR does help with property taxes, and I would definitely continue to support this. I also would support affordable housing and beautiful housing, such as the Mill. I think that's a great example of a pilot that I think was quite successful here. I do appreciate what's been said about RUPCO, as we know that Saugerties is the largest town in Ulster County, and RUPCO focuses a lot of attention on Kingston. And I think we could work closely with county officials to advocate for more done here in Saugerties.
Thank you. Tim?
Well, we absolutely do need to utilize RUPCO and what they have to offer. I'm a firm believer that housing is a human right. No one should be losing their home. No one should be homeless. And we need to partner with every relevant organization, anyone who has any more knowledge on this topic than people in this town may have, to ensure that every individual has a home, a place to live. And quite frankly, if we can't do that, I think that says something about us as a race.
Thank you, Tim. At this particular point, I see that it's 8 o'clock and we're going to give the candidates a 2-minute wrap up. So I'm going to ask one more question, and I'm going to take it from this one because I think it can be answered pretty quickly. And I'm going to ask the candidates if they would be willing, if we collect the questions, I'll collect the questions that were left unanswered, and I can send it to you individually. You can answer me individually, and then I could send them out to the people who've registered for here. We'll discuss that later. That might not work, but it could be a way that we could address things, because clearly there are a lot of questions and there's really not a lot of time. So I'm going to ask a very quick question, and I think this would will then go into the close. The question here came that it's a little bit tied to housing in general, but this is really specific. What can the town board do to minimize zombie houses, the houses that are vacant, the houses that are abandoned? There are several here, and there probably are more that I'm not even aware of. And this is coming from more than one person. So if we could begin, again, I think we begin with Kevin. I think that's where we are now. Kevin, could you begin with that?
Sure. Well, zombie houses are, are a particular issue. I think they're more of a village issue than town per se. But, these are the type of things that, one could talk about a land trust. One could talk about rehabilitation, working with CBOs or NGOs, that is a community-based organization, or non-governmental organizations, to help rehabilitate them. I know REPCO was just mentioned, but there's others. Habitats has a footprint here. So that's one way of getting them back onto the tax rolls and, provide more housing. I don't think there's enough of them really to make that much of a difference. And obviously short-term rental regulation is a big, big topic, and one that we didn't touch on here, and that I'd be glad to discuss at a future time.
Thank you. Deidre?
Yes, I would say that we need to find out from the Ulster County Ulster County taxes, and find out exactly what we can do to be able to take ownership of these properties and be able to put together maybe some organizations ourselves. We don't have to depend on other organizations. We can form organizations ourselves and be able to revitalize these homes and put them on the market for affordable housing. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity to right now with the government money coming in, that we can from the impact money, and we can use some of that funding and maybe raise some other funding to be able to get these houses out there for rental. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity, and I think that we should just focus on revitalizing these properties so that they're available for people to rent.
That's time. Thank you. Lauren?
I think that I just want to piggyback Kevin, but I do want to add that having grown up here, I know all the little nooks and crannies of Saugerties, and there are a lot of abandoned properties. If you drive down Old Kings Road on your way to Catskill, there's a bunch. You go by Saugerties Reservoir over here, there's one big one on the corner, and I think that repurposing those buildings and also creating energy efficient buildings. In Saugerties or in Kingston, they built a building that actually creates all the energy that it uses. So I think if we get creative that way, we can certainly make use out of a lot of the buildings that we have, or the motels on Old Kings Highway headed to Kingston in that corridor. We have a lot of things we can use.
Great, thank you. Nina?
Thank you. So as many of you know, I just bought a house that has stood vacant and was called an eyesore for over 20 years. And one of the barriers that I faced was obtaining a commercial mortgage, which is quite challenging. So I'd like to see an openness for easing the zoning regulations in terms of changing commercial zoning to residential zoning. if people would like that. And I also like to see incentives for using old industrial sites and converting them. People such as myself should receive support from the town to obtain and renovate old buildings without any barriers.
Thank you. Tim?
Well, I've heard recently that a housing committee may be started here in Saugerties. I'm sure that can be of great use for people with, with knowledge of zombie homes and what we can do. Having people come together in a good way to discuss ideas is wonderful. And as I said before, I believe housing is a human right, and we can take these zombie homes, we can renovate, we can tear it down, we can rebuild to make sure that there are no homeless people. Again, it's a human right. There should be nobody out on the street and with the elements and exposed to them. And for ones that we may not be able to do that with, we can always repurpose it for a business.
Thanks, Tim. And Kaylee?
One of the things I think we can do is to speed up the process it takes to condemn a building. And some of this happens at the town and village level, some of it happens at the county level. But one of the challenges to rehabilitating some of these buildings is that there are timeframes and certain steps that have to be gone through before a building can be condemned, which eventually hands it over to the county. And after a certain number of years, it's the county's responsibility to then, claw back the ownership of that and hand it to us. So one of the things I've talked to the town supervisor about is some of the current building codes that are making that process slower than it needs to be. And I also agree with Nina that we should have some incentives for rehabilitating these properties. And one of the challenges tends to be that they're often, the vacant properties may be owned by LLCs or people who are out of state and hard to reach, but some of that's going to be data collection and going after the people who should be responsible, and then making it easy to become a new responsible person for one of these buildings.
Great, thank you. So again, as I said, I will reach out to the candidates and ask them if they would be willing, and I'm sure they will be willing, because they want all of the voters to know that why you should be voting for them. So I will, any unanswered question will go out to the candidates, they will give it back to me, and I will make sure that every single person who registered for this will get the answers. So on that note, we're going to do the 2-minute closing statements from each candidate, and we will begin again going in order. The next person in this order would be Deidre Miller. So Deidre, you have 2 minutes to give your closing statement.
Okay, well, I would just like to say that I believe that I'm the best candidate for this position for the town board, because of the experience that I have throughout my life of being a single mom and being able to, take my knowledge and that I have learned, owning a home and traveling and living abroad and experiencing other cultures and being able to see the world from different perspectives, different points of view, and learning about how other cultures handle situations like housing shortages and economic struggles. And that I have learned a lot of things that will benefit this community, that I believe that only I really can bring. I believe that having my dad having been a law enforcement officer, that as far as dealing with the police and the issues, that I bring a special perspective as far as that's concerned, and being the first Black person to be running for this position, and if I win, it would be historical. And I believe that not just because I'm Black that it would be a good idea, but because of the difference in nuances and perspectives that I would bring from that has never been there on Saugerties Town Board before. And I believe that, if you're going to be inclusive and you're going to, want to have everyone participate and everyone represented, that we need to be thinking that we need to hear from everyone in our community and have them be members and participants. And I just feel like, I have so much to offer, and that I would like the opportunity to be able to, bring my ideas to fruition.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much, Deidre. Next, we have is Lauren, 2 minutes for your closing statement. Lauren, you're muted, Lauren.
I think what we need in the mix here is somebody who has grown up here or lived here for some time, left and come back with that perspective of what it's like to be in other places, and coming back home and appreciating what it had to offer is very important. Maintaining the community, the intimacy is very important. I think that overall, I am very dedicated to my town, and I also have children in the district, family that work in the district, family that are civil servants, friends in the business world here. And I think I have a very good overall view of the workings of the people of Saugerties. And I think that there's some of that missing in what's going on today. So I think bringing that here would be a good thing. I think it's a perspective that's needed.
1 minute.
I also think that my background in teaching social studies, I've learned a lot about governments and the workings of the world, having traveled to a lot of places. I have also seen how the haves and have-nots lived. And we were once a community of mixed people, and I think we need to maintain that. I feel that the gap between the rich and poor is getting way too big here, and we need to really work on that. And I think our focus needs to be on our full-time residents. You don't have to have been born here, but people who want to live here, I think we need to work with them and kind of treat them better overall.
Thank you, Lauren. Nina, 2 minutes.
Thank you. As your town board member, I will advocate for fiscal responsibility and promote trust and transparency in our government. I'll be examining the budget thoroughly and asking questions to ensure folks have the lowest property taxes possible and that our town budget is spent serving our community. We need to ensure trust in the government through transparency about responsible spending. We want to ensure residents feel confident speaking their minds without fear of financial retribution. We want to ensure that residents can stay in and continue to thrive in Saugerties. Saugerties prides itself on intergenerational businesses, which are really the backbone of our economy and the sense of community here. So I encourage the economic opportunities within the film, arts, and tourism industries, as they are essential to the future vitality of Saugerties. We know that artists beautify a community and bring financial success, and I'm proud of our thriving arts scene. I would like to see artist lofts and studios that are affordable, to incentivize businesses to repurpose old buildings rather than building anew, and to support our gateway regulation. I will advocate for safe, stable, and full-time employment opportunities. Most importantly, I want to ensure that residents can stay in their homes. A hardworking citizen who is able to afford to buy a home should never be at risk of losing it due to abrupt and unreasonable changes in property taxes. We do not want older residents and others on fixed incomes to be pushed out, and we don't want young people to leave for towns with more affordable housing. I'm running for town board because I've watched Saugerties evolve since I was a child. I'm a strong leader, a courageous go-getter, and I'm passionate about my vision of social and economic security for Saugerties. I have deep roots in our Saugerties community, and I will bring out a sizable coalition of seniors, artists, young people, and working class folks to give us a winning ticket in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. Tim, you're up, 2 minutes.
Thank you. As your town council member, I will absolutely aggressively fight for that 2% tax cap and always look for ways to make sure that we can cut taxes here so that people can stay in their homes. They will not have to abandon Saugerties, the place they love. I will aggressively market for jobs to come here. We need affordable and, sorry, excuse me. We need good paying jobs here in Saugerties. Right now, I don't see a whole lot of opportunity, but I believe that we can bring it here. And once this pandemic is over, we can come out ahead of the curve. I'll bring my experience as an elected trustee to make sure that we can do this. I also believe at the end of the day that Saugerties will come out on top, and that as a community, we can do this together. This isn't just about the Democratic primary. This is about who can win in November. The Republican Party already has their candidates. We do not. That can, in some ways, give them an advantage because they can sit back and watch us debate. We don't need to tear each other apart, and I know that's not going to happen. We're going to win the day, and I do believe that I am the best candidate to do that. But at the end of the day, I'll work with any of you. I'm happy you're all here tonight. I'm happy to see the turnout. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Kaylee.
Well, first, I want to say thank you to everyone for really diving into the issues with us together. Open dialogue like this is exactly the kind of thing I hope to continue if I have the honor of being elected. With your support, I'll bring my experience, my proven work ethic, and my commitment to collaboration to the Saugerties Town Board. In almost every challenge that comes our way, and we've talked about a lot of them tonight, I see an opportunity. We can protect our community, our environment, and our values, and progress at the same time. At work, my guiding principle is to approach every situation trying to do the most good for the most people. That's the commitment I'll make to you as your representative on the town board. I'm proud to carry the endorsements of the Saugerties Democratic Committee along with Kevin Freeman and the Ulster County Young Democrats along with Tim and Nina. You have a lot of good choices in front of you, as people have mentioned in the chat, and the stakes are high. Thousands of people in our community are struggling to make ends meet. All of us are worried about the health of the Esopus and the long impacts of development and tourism on our beloved forests, streams, reservoirs, and our neighbors. We all want our community to stay strong and intact, to keep weathering whatever new challenges and opportunities come our way. Kevin and I are here to unite our community around our shared principles of sustainability, long-term strategic planning, and equity. We're both running for office for the first time because we want to serve and protect you, to create the brightest future for all of us in Saugerties. So thank you for your time tonight. Please reach out if you want to continue the discussion on anything. And please, please, please vote in the primary. I hope I have the privilege of your support. Thanks again.
Thank you, Kaylee. And Kevin, 2 minutes, you're wrapping us up.
All right, thank you. With your support, I will bring a reasoned and collaborative voice to town council. There are many moving parts to making Saugerties inclusive, supportive, and dynamic. I know we have a lot of smart people here on committees at town hall, running businesses, raising families. I also know that almost half of our population lives just one paycheck, one unexpected emergency away from devastation. We need to invigorate people to live their best lives, to see beyond what's here and now, to envision and manifest a better future. Some individuals and families require a helping hand to navigate services available to them. Social problems like poverty, mental health, and substance abuse require proactive presence. This is a shared responsibility that requires teamwork, with the town board being an active partner. We recognize that we're a tourist destination and that homeowners have sovereignty over their property, but areas zoned as residential neighborhoods are by definition for residents and neighbors. We need to respect both sides to arrive at the best solution with common sense definitions of our housing stock. As a candidate, I am bound by the principles of transparency, accessibility, and cooperation. This is not the job of one person, but I will represent you and your values. I have the skills, experience, and temperament to integrate with the council, where I would hope to build consensus of shared objectives. My IT background gives me practical and technical capital. I work well in collaborative environments and can grasp the nuances of complex issues. I have been fortunate to campaign with Kay Zaloga. my fellow endorsed candidate. She's sharp and approachable with prior public service experience.
Okay.
But we're all first-time candidates learning as we go. We all have much to offer. I ask you to vote for me and my progressive ideals. Kaylee and I look forward to your support and are always available to discuss your concerns. You can reach out to me at kevinforsaugerties.org.
Thank you, Kevin. So before we end tonight, there's a couple of things I want to say. One is I'm on the Saugerties Democratic Committee, as one would know, and I'm often saying we have an embarrassment of riches. We have really great candidates, and I think this is going to be on the voter to really dig deeper. We got a good taste today, but you really need to dig deeper and really reach out to all of the candidates to hear from them. Also, because I'm in the Saugerties Democratic Committee, I cannot end this without giving a shout out to Gary Bishkoff and Marge. It's so great to see them. So Gary, you look great. Glad to see you here. And then I also would like to remind you all that next Thursday, we will have another forum, and this will be with involving the Legislative District 2 primary candidates, plus all of the other candidates who are not being primaried, but are running in Legislative District 1, Legislative District 3, and then also we're talking about the town positions of the supervisor with Fred and Julie Dunn. So that'll be next week, and it should be a terrific, terrific event. I want to thank all of you for being here tonight, and I will reach out to the candidates, get those questions answered, and get them out to you. So please vote in the primary and reach out to these candidates. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Hey, Chris, repeat the dates
The dates
for everything that you want us to be part of.
in terms of the elections.